Hi, I'm Sue Bowes and I'm the Commodore of Sandringham Yacht Club. Today it's my pleasure to be chatting with Geoff Henderson, otherwise known as Hendo. Geoff's a life member, past Commodore, and has been a member of Sandringham Yacht Club for over 60 years. I had the pleasure of sailing with Geoff on his Fire 1104 rum beat, and I have to say Geoff taught me everything I know about sailing and much, much more. But we always had a phrase, what happens on the boat stays on the boat, so I won't say too much about the shenanigans that we got up to in our sailing time together.
Thank heaven for that.
Welcome, Hendo.
Thank you, McSue.
All the nicknames are coming out now.
They are. It's hard to keep them away, isn't it?
It is. There was Middo, there was Hendo, there was Jonesy, all sorts of names on that boat.
Pinball.
Pinball, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Mud. I think everybody who sailed on Rumbeat at some stage ended up with a nickname.
Absolutely, and what great fun.
It was.
Now, Hendo, can you tell me, when did you start sailing and what attracted you to the sport?
Well, I guess as a very early age, I was known to steal my brother's toy yacht because he didn't show enough interest and I showed a lot of interest. And my father being a very keen yachtsman in his youth, I guess it's just a genetic thing. And it seemed a natural progression to join the club here, which I did when I was about 11 or 12. And the story goes from there.
Fantastic. And what drew you to Sandringham Yacht Club in particular? Was your father a member here?
He wasn't a member here. He sailed out of Elwood Sailing Club and Royal Melbourne in his early days. But I had a few friends from school, who I'll name, Rob Ware, Chris Hunting,
Wow.
Brian Oliver. We all joined at the same time, and I'm very pleased to say all of them are still active members in the club.
Absolutely,
It's fantastic.
It's fantastic indeed. Now tell me about Sandringham Yacht Club then, and what are some of the differences you see in the club now?
Well, as a cadet down here, you have to go to the old cadet building, and it was a pretty basic wooden structure with wooden slats leading down to what they called the beach, which wasn't a beach. It was black, oozy
Sludge.
mud. The Black Death it was called. And if you're unfortunate enough and you did something wrong, you end up getting thrown into the Black Death, and it stunk for weeks. But it was very basic. The new clubhouse had just started being built in those days.
Fantastic. That would be back in the late 60s?
That's early 60s.
Early 60s,
basically,
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid going to the opening of the new club. And
Wow.
when I say as a kid, I would have been 17, I guess. So,
And how tremendous too that you kept those friendships all those years. You've been a member of the club for 60 odd years. It's quite
it's fantastic.
Quite amazing.
They're still good mates, and we still see a fair bit of each other.
fantastic, fantastic. You mentioned your father also was a keen sailor, and I think it'd be fair to say that you actually now have 4 generations of Hendersons sailing. Your 2 grandsons are doing very well, Hugo and Sam.
They are. Yeah, well, actually, my father was a de facto member of the club here because when I was a kid here, he acted as the club photographer and he had an honorary membership. So I guess you could call it 4 generations. Andrew, he's probably at the top of his profession in the world. He currently works for Ineos as the operations manager for their America's Cup Challenge, which he's been involved in for, the last almost 20 years.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And the 2 boys, Sam and Hugo, both members. Sam has just qualified to be in the Australian team to go overseas. And Hugo, last year at the age of 10, took on the intermediate national championship in optimists. So
Fantastic.
they're,
There's a great sailing pedigree in your family.
well, I think at their age, they're far better than I ever was.
Fantastic. Now, coming back to the club and your tenure as Commodore, which was, I think, 2002 to 2004, what are some of the great achievements that you contributed to the club during your time as Commodore?
Well, I think the ongoing if you call it achievement, if you will, but it went on for years and years, was the development of the facilities master plan and the implementation of that. The clubhouse wasn't built whilst I was Commodore, but certainly the first stage, which was the yard and the Ken King Centre, went ahead. So in terms of club things, that was probably the important thing.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And it's really set the club up, you know, to where it is today. Yeah. Absolutely. And during your time of sailing at Sandringham Yacht Club, who are some of the characters and that you actually, you know, that really stand out to you?
Well, you mentioned a lot of them before. The crew of Rumbeat, or the Rumbuggers as they were called, were a pack of characters, and we always had a rule. We were going to have fun at all costs, but we also raced pretty hard. And that's there. Amongst the club, there are so many characters. It's very, very hard to put a finger on naming just one amongst them all, because there are some fantastic characters in this place, and there will continue to be so.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, you're very active in the Heritage Committee of the club, which is a very important part of the club. Can you tell me a little bit about the Heritage Committee and your role as club librarian?
Well, the Heritage Committee was virtually set up, number one, to preserve our heritage. Many years ago, we had a lot of things. When we were transitioning from building to building, there were clean outs, and so much club memorabilia got thrown out. And we just decided that it couldn't go on like that. Yeah. And so a group of great people was selected to join the Heritage Committee, all of whom have got a long standing of knowledge and information about the club, so we can protect our treasures, so to speak, and decide where we put things, where they get hung on walls.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, and that's very important to the history of a club.
I think it is, and we hadn't had it before, so I think it's been a really good thing to do.
Yeah. Hendo, it has been a great pleasure chatting with you today, and look forward to seeing you being a part of the club for a long time. And I think listening to the sailing pedigree of the family, the Henderson family is going to be part of Sandringham Yacht Club for many years to come. Well,
thanks, Sue. And all I can do is probably repeat what we used to teach all the young kids who came through the club when I was looking after the cadet section. We used to have new members nights, and we'd get the kids there, and aged from 8 through to 12 probably, and we'd sit them in the committee room and we'd say, now there are 10 rules in this club that you've got to obey, and all the kids would stand to attention. Rule 1, have fun. Rule 2, do your best. Rules 3 to 10, refer back to Rule 1. Fantastic. Let's hope they continue to do it forever. That's something we definitely need to treasure and carry on for years to come. Thank you again, Hendo. And thanks you, Sue.